If you watch this video in its entirety, you will be able to beat all 6 available Grandmaster Nightfalls this season and Guild Your Conqueror. I'm that confident in the effectiveness of this guide. This is going to show you every single weapon, exotic, and mod you'll want to assemble, as well as exactly what loadouts you want to run for each specific strike, with class-specific subclass recommendations included. And to round us out, I'm going to show you how to beat every difficult part of every GM this season. I'm not going to waste any time on sections of GMs that realistically you don't need advice on, even if it's your first time going through. So enough hold up, let's get started. Before you can understand our weapon selection, you need to understand what specifically we are selecting our weapons for. The 3 main things to look at when it comes to Grandmasters are champion types, shields, and the elemental singe. In this particular season, all 6 of the Grandmaster Nightfalls have barrier champions residing in them, so it should be no surprise that I am recommending Arbalest on a bare minimum of 2 of your fire team members in every single strike, since not only does it one-shot every single barrier shield, but it also one-shots every elemental shield, effectively making the match game modifier non-existent. By not having to worry about enemy shield types, it frees up your elemental weapon selection to allow you to invest in using weapons that match the elemental singe type for a 25% damage boost, rather than having to use weapons that match the shield types for that strike. Now, you might be thinking, Mac, what about Wish Ender or Anti-Barrier Sniper? And yeah, these are incredible anti-barrier weapon options, with one using primary ammo and the other not having to take your exotic weapon slot. And if you are keen to use a loadout that utilizes one of these 2 over the Arbalest, then by all means please do. At the end of the day, the best loadout is the one that you are most comfortable executing. But on paper, the Arbalest just has so much going for it, with its built-in anti-barrier, amazing damage, strong ammo economy, and match game nullification, that it's hard not to recommend this weapon across the board. Now, what of our heavy slot? Well, that's easy. And don't worry, I'm not skipping energy weapons. We will get to those. Just trust me, here there's a method to my madness. Like I said, we want to invest in weapons that match the elemental singe, made possible by our ability to ignore the match game modifier and subsequent enemy shields by using Arbalest. In 5 of the 6 strikes this season, that singe is Arc, making Storm Chaser with Rapid Hit Vorpal Weapon or Rapid Hit Firing Line the premier linear fusion rifle for Grandmaster Nightfalls in Season 18. If you don't have Storm Chaser, it's no problem. The Sail Spy Pitch class, the seasonal Arc Linear Fusion Rifle with Rapid Hit Vorpal Weapon or Rapid Hit Frenzy can do just fine. The only strike that doesn't have an Arc Singe this season is Glassway, with ships with Void instead. So instead of Storm Chaser, we will want the Taipan 4FR with Triple Tap and Firing Line. And if you don't have that yet, I have the perfect video that you can watch after you finish this video on how to acquire and level it. So we have most of our kinetic slots decided and all of our heavy slots decided. All that's left is energy. Like I said, all 6 Grandmasters this season have barrier champions, with 4 of those 6 Grandmasters also having overloads and the other 2 having unstoppables. In those 2 unstoppable strikes, Blightblade and Disgraced, both of which have the Arc Singe modifier, you'll want all 3 Guardians to run an Arc Pulse like Horror's Least or Insidious, with Unstoppable Pulse on your gloves, along with those Arbalests and Storm Chasers. Simple enough. For the overload strikes though, things get a little more complicated due to the simple fact that Divinity is too damn good to ignore when it comes to keeping Overload stunned and bursting any target in the game. In the 3 Overload strikes that have Arc Singe, Fallen Saber, Devil's Lair, and Exodus Crash, you'll want your 2 Arbalest players to rock the point of the Stag Bow with Archer's Tempo and Vorpal Weapon in the energy slot, along with Overload Bow on the gloves. This bow is super easy to acquire if you don't already have it, by simply going to the vendor in between the vaults and the tower and, well, just buying it. In the 1 Overload strike that has Void Singe, Glassway, you'll want your 2 Arbalest players to rock a Void Bow like Under Your Skin with Archer's Tempo and Explosive Head, or Imperial Needle with Archer's Tempo and Vorpal Weapon. Your 3rd Guardian, the Divinity Chad, will have 2 different options for their kinetic slot in all 4 of these Overload strikes. In strikes that tend to promote long-range play like Glassway and Devil's Lair, you'll want to rock a Scout Rifle like the Night Watch with Rapid Hit and Explosive Payload. In strikes that tend to promote close quarters combat, however, like Fallen Saber and Exodus Crash, you'll want to instead run a submachine gun like the Submission with Overflow and Frenzy. Now, for classes, you can't go wrong with any of the three, but you'll definitely want to use some specific subclasses when it comes to running GMs. Starting with the subclasses that work great for any of the 6 Grandmaster Nightfalls, it should be no surprise that Invis Hunter with Omnioculus, Graviton Forfeit, or 6th Coyote is still kicking names and taking butts. Wait, what? At the end of the day, Grandmaster Nightfalls are all about survivability, and there is no better way to survive than literally being able to disappear from sight right in front of your enemies. That's not to say that's the only viable way for surviving though, as Well of Radiance Warlocks are still hitting hard in Grandmasters. In fact, Solar Warlocks actually have 3 paths, being able to go offensive with Starfire Protocol Infusion Grenades, defensive with Phoenix Protocol and higher well uptime, or utility-based with Aeon Swift and Sect of Insight. And don't worry, Titans have a survive button as well, with Loreley Splendor giving them near invincibility in conjunction with strong close quarters combat from their throwing hammer, which, by the way, I named my throwing herald hammer. Wow, I butchered that line. Now, switching focus to offensive options for you folks that like to speed through GMs a little more quickly, Void Warlocks with Controverse Holds remain superb for spawn killing enemies or dropping a champion with ease. Moving back to the Titan side of things though, with 5 of the 6 strikes having an Arc Singe, Thundercrash Titan with Curious of the Falling Star is absolutely insane for any strike not named Glassway this season. Now, looking at some more niche subclass picks that I only recommend for specific Grandmasters, Sentinel Shield Void Titan can be a lifesaver for guaranteed immunity and safe revives in tough to survive boss rooms like Lightblade, Exodus Crash, and Glassway. And speaking of Glassway, Stasis Warlock can be a blessing in this strike, specifically for dealing with the Wyverns. However, I highly recommend against using this in any other Grandmaster, and quite frankly against any champions in general, since Stasis and champions don't play so nicely together. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, check out this video linked in the description after you're done watching this one. So that's all the class recommendations, but what about mods? Well, no matter what, every single person should be running double thermoshock plating on their chest, as well as linear fusion ammo finder and scavenger on their helmet and boots. These mods just bring too much to the table to ignore, giving you free defensive stats and impeccable linear fusion ammo economy. Other than that, elemental well mods are the play as usual. For Void Hunters, I recommend stuff like Reaping Wellmaker, Well of Utility, Elemental Ordnance, and Bountiful Wells, and for Solar Titan and Warlock, I would urge you towards Elemental Ordnance, Melee Wellmaker, Seeking Wells, Bountiful Wells, and Well of Life. For any subclass other than those 3, you basically just ask yourself, am I getting a lot of kills with my grenade? And if the answer is yes, run Elemental Ordnance. Similarly, if you would answer yes to, am I getting a lot of kills with my melee ability, then you should be slapping on Melee Wellmaker. And finally, if your weapon type matches your subclass type, so for example, you were using Thundercrash and Arc weapons, or Night Stalker and Void weapons, Elemental Armaments is a great pickup as well. Now, listen, before we get into the specific strategies for each strike, I need to point out a few things. These strikes just became available as Grandmaster Nightfalls about 24 hours ago, and even though we have had them all in the past, strategies change with the seasons as varying metas come and go. At the time of making this video, these are the best strategies available as far as I know, but that doesn't mean it's impossible for new and better strategies to be discovered as time goes on. So here is my promise. Should a new strategy be found in time, I guarantee you I will make a video informing you of it here on my YouTube channel. Just make sure to subscribe so it pops up on your recommended page. Besides, if you have made it this far in this video, clearly you must be finding this type of content helpful. I make tons of videos like this, and subscribing to my channel and liking these videos helps me continue to create this style of content to help you win in Destiny. With all that being said, let's kick things off with Glassway. For the plate section, simply progress the plate until you see enemies spawn, at which point you'll want to hop off and retreat to cover to kill them before continuing. For the boss room, target selection is ultra important here. You have 2 health bars, the mini Hydra boss and the big Hydra boss, that health gate add spawns. Waves 1, 2, and 4 spawns are dependent on the mini Hydra boss's health, while wave 3 is dependent on the big Hydra boss's health. Waves 1 and 3 spawn Overload Minotaurs, with waves 2 and 4 spawning wyverns and barrier hobgoblins. A wave will always begin with 2 of these enemies, with another 2 spawning when the boss's health for that wave reaches half of their current third of HP. So for example, in wave 1, when you take the mini Hydra's HP down to 5/6 of its total HP, you'll get another 2 Overload Minotaurs. In wave 2, when you drop it to 1/2 of its total HP, you'll get another 2 wyverns and barrier hobgoblins. In wave 3, when you drop the big Hydra's health to 50%, you'll get another 2 Overload Minotaurs. And in wave 4, which is the only wave with the exception to the rules, when you kill the mini Hydra boss, you'll get another 2 wyverns and hobgoblins. My number 1 tip for all of these enemies is to bait and funnel them through the middle hallway, except for the first left side wyvern of waves 2 and 4, which you'll want to set up in the back left hallway to spawn kill, leaving you to only have to deal with 1 before bringing the extra wave out. Additionally, you should always deal with the first 2 enemies of a wave before damaging the respective boss to bring the next wave out. Moving on to Devil's Lair, for the intro, just creep around the left side and skip past everything, including the Overload Captain. Don't worry, you'll still get platinum. Once you head to the train station section and hack the whatever that thing is, just head over to the broken down train cars and hang back near them for all 3 waves. Once you make your way outside, hang back and clear out all of the snipers on the roof, at the front right, and at the back left, after which you can hop up on top of the roof of the middle building and spawn kill the tank, making the rest of this area significantly easier to clear. And finally, for the boss room, just play the entire fight in the back left room. You can even hit all 4 of the void servitors during the boss's immunity phase through the windows in this room with some crafty angles. With Exodus Crash, don't use your Sparrow in the intro section. I don't care how good of an idea it seems like it may be at the time, I promise it's not. For the hacking platform, just be patient here. Stick out the plate for as long as you can, but be ready to wave the white flag and retreat anytime anything gets remotely close to you. Having players die on the plate is what will cause you wipes. There's no shame in heading back to the staircase to clean things up before progressing the plate a little bit more. The spider tank area isn't particularly hard, but cheesing things that don't need to be cheesed is a Destiny player's specialty, so be sure to head to the back right of the large structure to scale it, where you can kill the tank safely from above. Speaking of scaling up structures, you can basically do the same thing in the room preceding the boss fight, which will save you the trouble of having to fight any adds on the way up. For the boss room itself, that box on the left is your best bet. And yes, that one cheese spot you know about still works, but come on, we don't cheese things, that's cheating. Spider tank from above? I have no idea what you're talking about. Seriously though, the cheese spot works fine, assuming you have some warlocks to heal you through the electricity floor, but here's a super easy legit strategy that works fine as well. The boss will either enter far left or close left from the perspective of the box. You'll want to div him and burn him like there's no tomorrow with storm chasers. If you do enough damage, he is gone until you wipe out all of the adds, and if not, he will pop back in for you to throw another shot or 2 into before he takes a quick break. With the boss off the field, the arena becomes exponentially safer, allowing you to travel around it together in the event that you get overwhelmed by adds at the box. After clearing every single add, the boss will then spawn at the entrance, where once again you want to div and burn until he's gone for good. After that, it's rinse and repeat with add clear, this time with 2 barrier servitors. After you drop all the adds, preferably finishing with the barrier servitors, the boss will return, spawning either close left or far left once again, and from here it's div and burn until he drops. This strike is notoriously hard for its boss room, but I'm telling you, div, storm chasers, and arc singe kind of makes this thing a joke. Disgraced isn't too bad. My only non-boss tip is for the large outside room. The 2 anti-barrier knights on the boxes are super annoying because if you stagger them twice, then they fall off the box and then just regenerate their health behind it before jumping back up. So make sure to coordinate with your team to one-shot them from range. For the boss room, the boss starts at the bottom, then spends the middle 50% of the fight on the upper bridge, then sits at the bottom till you kill her after you knock her down to about 33% HP. My main tip here is that anytime she is on the bridge, the bottom is super safe as long as you keep your head on a swivel. Main thing you need to look out for is the 2 knights that spawn out of this door when she first teleports away from the bottom, and then any thrall that spawn as you damage the boss. Just take DPS slow and don't tunnel vision too hard on anything and you'll be fine. For Lightblade, having an Invis Hunter just makes this whole strike so much more bearable. For starters, you can skip past the intro section after phasing the boss and despawn everything, allowing your teammates to come forward. And yes, that includes the Barrier Knights, and yes, you still get Platinum. For the first main room, you have 3 waves. The first with a Hive Guardian and 2 Barrier Knights, the second having just 1 Hive Guardian, and the third having another Hive Guardian and 2 Sword Knights. The best way to play this room is by killing as few enemies as possible, trying to prioritize the previously mentioned targets. This is because waves 2 and 3 spawning are based on killing enough enemies in the room, so by prioritizing the scary targets first, not only do you avoid having to deal with multiple Hive Guardians at once, but you can also set up to spawn kill the tough targets in future waves. In wave 1, I like hanging out on the upper balcony. For wave 2, I like to retreat out through the entrance and hang out by the bell. And for wave 3, I like to set up to spawn kill all 3 targets that spawn together in the middle, because we usually have supers at this point. For the boat, you can literally use an Invis Hunter to skip past this entire section without having to shoot a single bullet. It's awesome. And for the swamp, you pretty much do the same thing. You'll just have your 2 teammates find trees to hang out in so the Screebs don't get them, and send the hunter on their way. Once they pass the portal, all enemies will despawn and the movement debuff will disappear. Only thing to be careful of here is moths, since they can track you through invis and they don't despawn when a player clears the puzzle. Now, the boss room, this is why you're here, isn't it? Click subscribe if I'm right. Come on. I promise I got some good tips for you here. The absolute best way to beat this boss is by understanding his attack and movement patterns. The boss has 3 rules. Rule number 1, he will not begin shooting while airborne. Rule number 2 is he will never slam while airborne. And rule number 3 is if he is aggroed to you, but on a different elevation than you, he will jump and therefore be airborne to get to the same elevation as you. You can heavily abuse these 3 rules and effectively prevent him from shooting his arc blasts throughout 99% of the fight, simply by forcing him to continuously jump back and forth from platform to platform. The number 1 way to do this is by utilizing the bowl in the middle of the room. Just go back and forth, up and down, while you do damage to him. Sometimes he will lose interest, or you will lose sight of him, but again, if you're on a different elevation than him, then you are safe, because it's impossible for him to slam you, and if he does shoot at you, you can just cut off his line of sight by backing up before reacquiring aggro and baiting him into a jump block. Now, you might be thinking, okay, what if there are other enemies up in the arena? Being in the middle, jumping around doesn't seem so safe. And yeah, you're right, but here's the thing. This fight goes at whatever pace you want it to go, because the ad spawns are based on the boss's HP, which means if you need time to charge supers to one-shot any incoming ad spawning, you just jump lock him while your team charges supers, and your other 2 fire team members hunt down the barrier champions that spawn at 67%, 50%, and 25% HP while you play trampoline with Ala Cool. As for the Hive Guardians, they will always spawn on the east side of the plate, assuming the statue with Oryx and Akka is the north end of the room. Simply nuke them, clean up all the thrall, and then drop the 2 Sword Knights after letting your supers fully charge to bring Ala Cool back into the fight. Now, by no means is the strategy guaranteed to get you a clear on your next attempt. There is a lot that can go wrong, as this is a very dangerous boss room. Just remember your 3 rules and stick to them as best as you can. The best place to be in this fight is either directly above Ala Cool or directly below Ala Cool. The closer you are to danger, the farther you are from harm. It's the last thing he'll expect. Finally, we have Fallen Saber. For the Warsat section, always remember that you can shoot off the skiff turrets. It'll make this part miles easier. And if you have an Invis Hunter, you can actually just Invis the entire capture, which will despawn every single non-champion enemy, after which you can mop up the champs for platinum before carrying on. For the first room in the bunker, book it to the back of the left hallway. It's by far the safest spot in this room. For the ball dunk section, Invis Hunter is killer here as usual, otherwise just jump really fast as you're rolling down the trench to ping pong yourself forward. For the boss, begin the fight behind the small box in the middle where you'll burn his first 25%. After that, you can head over to the left and play the rest of the fight behind the cover of the large panels. After you drop the boss to 50% HP, you'll get 2 sniper shanks that come out of the window right in front of you. After that, it's champ cleanup and a nice boss burn. Now, if you've watched all of this and are still struggling to beat a particular Grandmaster, Lightblade, after a healthy number of attempts, my final solution to your troubles is to come to my live streams linked on screen right now. I do live carries of all Grandmaster Nightfalls, as well as answer your questions in real time to help you decide on your perfect loadout or tweak your strategy to achieve that Lightblade clear. That's all I have for you today. Please consider liking and subscribing if you found this video helpful. Thanks for watching, and as always, have a great day.